I think the poets that will come after this moment, they won't be alone because they can easily go to YouTube and learn and have these conversations instead of just seeing our performances or reading our poems, but actually know the behind the scenes of being a poet, and learn some skills. I've learned so much just from watching Puo. And yeah, so thank you so much for that.
Thank you. I should make you like the promo ambassador for Puo. Like, yes.
Yeah, you know, poets might not be able to Google how much a poet earns in South Africa yet, but you know what? They must tune into Puo. Yeah. They'll probably find out.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Puo with me, your host, Emmah Mabye. Today's guest. Oh my gosh. This woman's pen game is insane. She is a wordsmith of note. Zakes Mda himself had this to say about her publicly, very publicly. Busisiwe Mahlangu is now my favorite poet in the whole of Southern Africa. Not South Africa, Southern Africa. A very young woman with elegant imagery and diction that wrench your insides out. Now, who needs a bio after that? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, a virtual applause, please, for Busisiwe Mahlangu. No, but shame, how are you?
I'm good, especially after that reminder.
Actually, I'm thinking, no, let me do justice to your bio. I mean, that's what all my bio contain. Just that.
Listen, this is how I should introduce myself. Hi, I'm Busisiwe Mahlangu. I'm Zakes Mda, favorite poet in the Southern Africa.
So, say it with confidence, girl. Yeah. Like, it's there. Like, everybody saw it. Anyway, Busi is a writer and performer from Mamelodi. She was a fellow at the Johannesburg Institute for Advanced Studies in 2022. She has traveled. But Puo style, you know, the international caliber of the artist here. South Africa, Lesotho, Mozambique, Sweden, Nigeria, and the US. The girl is a TED Talk speaker, so please Google that. Now, Zakes Mda's favorite poet. How does that actually make you feel knowing that?
It makes me feel, to be honest, when I saw it on Facebook, I couldn't believe it, right? But here at State Theatre, they had a conversation about his book, The Wayfarer's Hymns. And I came, after the conversation, they opened the floor for audience to ask. And then I'm like, oh, I have a question. And then as I'm talking, he's like, Busi, is that you? I'm like, yes. And he's like, what? This is my favorite poet. And he tells everyone in the room. I'm like, I'm standing there like,
shine.
And then they call me to the stage and he like keeps throwing compliments. I'm like, okay. Afterwards, I did share one poem.
Of course.
In his presence.
Of course. Hello.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that was massive. That's when I believed it. When he said it in a room full of people, I was like, yeah, it's for real.
Yeah.
It's for real. That was amazing.
No, easily. I can easily understand why you would be his favorite poet. Now, before we get into all of that, you've just done a medley of poems. Birthmarks. I
Wear Mother's Bones.
I Wear Mother's Bones.
And Set Me Free.
And Set Me Free. Why these poems?
So I really do like stories that look at the lineage of women. Mostly because of I feel it's important to archive, to document women's stories. Yeah. So those poems together, I felt like they were in communication in some way. Birthmarks is like the inheritance of healing, like just inheriting a scar is like something is still there, but then now you're inheriting a scar, which is it's proof that this has happened. Whatever has happened is proof that it has happened, but then you're inheriting something that has already healed from the trauma that exists from previous generations. So I do love looking at that kind of lineage, especially my lineage, where I come from, and trying to find language for things that we usually did not have language for at home, like mental health, like healing, like how do we have a conversation about these kind of experiences that have made us, that have shaped us. So then with Set Me Free, I did think of some way passing a story as a baton. I feel that in history, like women, it's easy for women to be erased from history. But then, like this thing of passing a story to the next generation about their heroes, about women they come from, what they've done, what they've achieved, who they were, what kind of people were they. That makes it important to pass those stories down, to make the work of archiving and documenting, to take that responsibility seriously, to bring the voices that were previously erased in history. So I think it's very important. Set me free. It's just the retelling of stories, that it doesn't matter how old the story is, it will always have a space. It will always be important to observe and to write it.
How difficult have these conversations been with your own mother, or, you know, the woman in your family?
It has been difficult because I think as well, what I have realized has been like the difficulty of language, how I access these kind of explanations, these like feminism, how I access stories. Because the first time when I was starting out in my writing, I was very inspired by Audre Lorde when it was like, poetry is not a luxury. And so like most of the things that inspired my work, I access them in English, and then I write them down in English, and then I'm having these conversations with my mom in isiZulu. So then like there's that bridge of language. But then what I do appreciate is time as well. Like we're becoming better in these kind of conversations. There's some sort of ease, and I'm being more intentional about trying to figure out like what does this, whatever I'm learning or whatever I believe in, how does this actually translate into my life, which then means in the language that I speak and dream in.
That's a journey.
It is.
That is a beautiful journey nonetheless. So what is poetry to you?
You know, I'm laughing because you always get that question, but the answer keeps changing.
Okay.
So I think poetry for me is storytelling, is a space where I can tell stories. And I think poetry depends, the meaning of poetry depends on what I'm working on. My understanding is that poetry can be boundless and limitless, and you can stretch it as far as you want to stretch it, or move it as far as you want to move it. And that kind of approach has allowed me not to box the kind of work that I'm creating into like, oh, okay, I have a checklist. Okay, now I need a metaphor, and now I need a simile. Let me personify this and do that. But having been writing for a while, you step away from the rules. And you try to find creative ways to break them to serve the story better. So what becomes important, what is in the center of poetry then is what you're saying, is the story. And obviously the metaphors and whatnot will still be there, but not making that like the basis. Like I'm not writing a test where I'll be marked, 10 out of 10, she's written a very good poem. But what I'm trying to do with the work is way beyond what technically would stand as a poem or as poetry. So yeah, I'm learning to color outside of the lines as time keeps moving.
And how was the beginning of the journey for you? If you just go, how many years back are we even going? You know, how did it all start? Where did it all start?
How many years are we going back? Maybe primary.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say primary, because that's when I first started performing assembly, giving my poems in front of people. So that's where it starts. But the reason why I started writing poetry in primary school was because I used to keep a journal, and I was always scared someone would read it. But then now I was like, if I write, like I'll just write my insets as like a poem, and I can always hide behind the fact that no, it's just art.
Yeah.
So it felt like I had created, or I had access to this secret language or the secret way to write my thoughts down and still feel like I understand what I'm saying, but it doesn't make me feel as exposed as like the diary entries used to do. But it was just from that fear. And over time, you meet other poets, you get to experience other works. I remember when I was in high school, I came back home and there was a show on TV. I forgot what it was. But then at the end of the show, while I'm still eating, I'm sitting there in front of the TV. Hayani comes on. And she is performing. I was like, you can do this with poetry.
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that. So what has happened is that you keep meeting poets who are exploring, who are fun. You know how Hayani performs. It's so musical. It's just so amazing and so beautiful. I want to do this. I want to do this. I think that was the moment I decided I want to do it professionally, even though I didn't have the idea or the tools or how am I going to go about it.
But what did you envision of your work as you were going through, the seriousness of I'm actually going to do this?
Yeah, I think in the beginning of when I said I want to do it, I thought it's something that I'm going to do like part-time. Even though I wanted to do it professionally, I didn't think it was possible to take that route. So what I envisioned was that I'm going to be an engineer.
Okay.
So after high school, I went to vet and I enrolled to study electrical engineering. Do not ask me why I did that. Okay,
I would have never thought. I'm sorry. Busisiwe engineering, like, oh, okay.
Listen,
well, this one even.
So I like, it was just very random as well, because I just Googled how much does an electrical engineer earn, and then I divided it by 12, and I was like, you know what, I want this money.
Okay.
So I thought I'll be an engineer, and then I'll keep writing and perform and whatnot.
So
but then when I was studying at VETS, this was during fees must fall, and we were there in the picket lines where protesting, and then you meet like people who are studying different things in the university. I'm meeting people who are doing drama and they have open exams where you can sit and watch them perform their piece. And I'm like, what? This is something that you're actually studying. And that really opened the door to a whole new world for me.
Nice.
So when VETS excluded me, I was like, okay, sharp. Let me do this poetry thing. I gave that whole other career that comes with the money and the pegs. But now, let me do what I want to do. Even though I know it felt like a very risky choice. Because I was like, where can I Google how much a poet earns? Where am I going to find that information?
We'll get there one day. Shem, we will get there. Yeah.
So yeah, there was no figure that would like encourage me into going into the space. But I decided that there will never be a moment in time where we don't need writers, where we don't need artists, where we don't need poets. So I'm just gonna be one of those people who are doing the work, we are creating, we're taking up space. And that's how I was like, it's fine, even if I don't get paid. But that was when I was young. Now, if you come to me and you're like, come do this show free, side eye.
We deserve our pay.
Exactly.
So you've taken your writing and you then had a book, Surviving Loss, an award-winning book. Why did you decide to actually have a book?
So my approach to writing has always been text. Like, I've always been obsessed with the text. I think even more than the performance aspect of it, it's text that I've been obsessed with. And even when I started performing, I was like, I'm just going to perform with my name because this is the name I'm going to publish in. The idea to publish a book, initially I thought I'll self-publish Surviving Loss, raise the funds, and then bring it into the world. But then around that time, when I was still raising the funds, Pepper Press was starting and they were launching. So Vangile Kancho reached out to me and said, do you have a manuscript that we can see? I took a bit of a while because I did take a bit of a while to bring it, because, like, I feel the manuscript was a bit far from, like, having it sit in front of someone's eye and them looking at it and deciding if it's worth publishing or not. And then eventually I did send the manuscript to her. And then they were like, yeah, we would love to publish. This will be one of the first titles that we'll publish by Paper Press, which really helped, because I don't know where I was going to get the money. Yeah. But there's been like very big support with having Paper Press, with having people who care about women's stories work on the book and bring it into the world. That kind of care that was given to my book in the creating process of it and bringing it together to actually having it in front of people's lap. That was just so beautiful. And I can't imagine another process for surviving loss. It was very beautiful.
That's nice. It is, I think, affirming and just like very comforting to have a smooth process, because writing a book is not easy. What more material do you still wish to actually put out there?
So yes, I am working on my manuscript currently.
Hey.
I'm working on manuscripts.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to focus on one thing at the time sometimes. But there is a major manuscript that I've been working on. It's titled A Body Makes Fire. I've been working on it for a couple of years. Okay. In the beginning, my friend Manola Gayatri was like, let's set up our own writing residency. Let's self-fund our own writing residency. And I went down into Cape Town where she was. She was in Fishhook, and we spent like 5 weeks just writing together. And that was like the foundation for A Body Makes Fire. And after that whole experience, it was just so beautiful being able to walk down to the beach and then work on your manuscript while listening to the waves, and then having a writer who I very much admire and whose work is just so beautiful. Having that feedback session that has been ongoing for a full 5 months, staying together, that has been like a very amazing experience. And after that, I just went like, I want to seek out more writing residencies, because like having the space where you're so removed from the physical world, you're in a space where this is the time for your work, this is the time for you to write, to edit, to give this energy out into your work, which in the real world, it can be you feel like, this is the last thing you will do. Something you keep pushing up. You're like, no, I have bills to pay. I have to do this. I have to do that. So it ends up not being a priority. But when you're in a writing residency, I felt like I could focus, pour everything into my work, knowing that the food is taken care of, the accommodation is taken care of, and sometimes there'll be some bit of stipend. But what I value most is just being in an environment where you can write and get instant feedback from other writers. So like A Body Makes Fire has been a collective effort. I think compared to Surviving Loss that I wrote in isolation, and I also wrote like just hiding the material, because I was so scared that someone would be like, what are you doing? This is so ridiculous, and be discouraged. But with A Body Makes Fire, it's been such a collective effort. So many writers have read it, have given me feedback, and it keeps the work growing and changing shape for the better.
How do you deal with the criticism?
Yeah, I just take it.
Okay.
Some criticism does hurt. No lie. Like,
hence you ask.
You're like, you don't have to be that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think criticism and art can exist together. How many times have I bought a book because I read a review? And sometimes I've bought a book because I've read a bad review, but all the things that were highlighted to be bad were things that I was actually looking for in a book. So my understanding of criticism is that it's not about whether it's right or wrong. It's about, does it serve the work you're creating? Does it add into the vision you want to create for this particular work? So being mindful and being intentional about how you accept criticism, and also understanding you have to always understand. Not everyone is gonna like what you're creating. Not everyone is gonna understand it. But at the end of the day, there is a space for what you're making, and that space exists, and you have to keep moving towards the vision that you want to create. And sometimes criticism might show you that that's not the vision you want to create. You want to create something else. That happens. But at the end of the day, just listen and, pick what works for you.
Yeah.
And the other stuff might not work, and that's fine.
Does it matter to you that much whether people understand your work or not?
Specific people. If there are specific people I'm speaking to in the work and they don't understand my work, that's when it matters. Because I think another thing about an audience or readers, like this, people come from different places, they have different experiences. But when I have like a specific group of people I want to talk to that I'm communicating with, if they don't understand me, that's when it bothers me most.
Which is the most difficult audience?
The most difficult audience is grandmothers.
Oh, shame. Is language the problem?
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, it's language the problem. But recently one of my grandmothers, who's actually my paternal grandmother's sister, was turning 100 years old in the beginning of the year. And I was like, I do not want to see English in this poem.
Nice.
And completely perform the poem in Zulu. So it's just also understanding, like, sometimes an audience is not difficult because an audience is difficult because there's a barrier that exists. But if you care about reaching that audience, then you have to find ways to get to them.
So the book was then adapted into a theatre production right here at the South African State Theatre. How did that come about?
How did that come about? So I was recommended to the State Theatre. I was recommended by Torsten Clear. He had just done his adaptation for the Incubator poetry, and they called me in. They interviewed me, asking more about my work, and then I was like, I didn't even know what I was fighting for, but I was fighting. I was like, my work is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know? And then like a few weeks later, they called me up and they were like, yeah, we want to work with you in the Incubator.
Nice.
And I decided to adapt my book because, like I told you, that I used to be very text heavy.
Yes.
But then when it comes to performance or how that work translates on stage, it's like I do not write with that vision in my head. I write with the vision that someone will read it. They'll see the line breaks. They'll see the punctuation. They'll see how the poem looks on the page. So I thought this is an opportunity to take that work that exists on text, that is written from like that perspective, and sort of translate it into stage and bring it, make sure it lives in people's eyes. So that was an opportunity to do that. I really enjoyed that. I would really love to do another production.
Listen, there's this thing that bites you from just the first theatre production. You're just like, I want to do it again. Right. So what did production teach you about yourself as a writer and you as Busi the person?
Oh, what it taught me as a writer was that once we started rehearsals, like my writing was not that necessary. So it felt like giving up control.
Yes.
And then trusting my body and my voice to actually do the work. And as myself, it taught me that, what did it teach me as myself? It taught me that I can really commit to something. And when I was starting out, I did have like issues with like existing in a big stage, moving around the big stage. But then like I was so committed to making the work become beautiful, to just, I was so committed to making the work. So I had to dig inside myself and be like, we'll find a way to make this work. I had to remember that, girl, you don't just have hands, you have legs, you have knees, you have, and all of this body can't be part of the performance. And it also did very much teach me how to be a performer.
So your work is so beautiful that it has also earned you the inaugural SA National Poetry Prize, and this was in 2020.
Yeah.
What do you think such an accolade means for the poetry community, and what did it mean to you?
So one of the poems I performed, actually, that's the one that won. It's I Wear My Mother's Bones. What do I think it means to me first, I will say, is that it really affirmed my work. You know, around 2020, we were not always on stage performing our work. So it affirmed that my work can go out there and represent me. And that it is enough as it is. But it also did affirm something else, that I used to be so scared of rejections. Very, very scared of it. In such a way that I'll only submit my poems if an editor has reached out to me and asked that I submit.
With your pen game?
I used to be scared. But I think that winning that the National Poetry Prize, because I sat down and I submitted my work and I went on with my life. You know, I submitted work that I already had. It made me realize that sometimes it can be just as easy as that you write the work, you edit it, you create it, and when you're done with the work, you send it out into the world. And you might get back a no, or you might get back a yes, and it's good to just try. And for the poetry community, you know, sometimes I struggle to be like, if I've achieved something and be like, oh, this is a big win for the poetry community. I struggle to just say that.
Why?
Because I do not know, does it make a huge difference to other writers that have won a National Poetry Prize? And how does it make a difference? I do know, there's also just the general overview of it, that it does make a difference that poetry is taking up more spaces. But in terms of taking my individual experiences and then being like, yo, look at this big win for poetry. Yeah, I do not know, does it really make a difference for other writers? And yeah, so it's always hard to claim that. It's much better if someone comes and be like, you know, I was inspired when I saw you do 1, 2, 3. And then I submitted my work, and then I'm so happy I shortlisted, or this is the reason I keep submitting my work, because of what you said. That makes a difference. It's hard to know what adds value in people's lives or what doesn't, you know.
When do you know that you have an award-winning poem? Because your poems have been making you win things, eh? You've been winning slams, girl.
How do I know?
You've been winning prizes. Yeah.
I do not know. I just test it out.
Okay.
You know, take it on a slam, or submit it to a publication, or I never know, hey?
Yeah.
I never know. I think another thing with your poems being judged, when people say you're shortlisted or you're longlisted, there are so many conditions that actually make up that win. It might be the people who are sitting down reading the work, they might really resonate with your work. But then it has happened, and it's very affirming, and I'm always grateful. But that kind of look into it also makes me realize that sometimes a great poem can be rejected, and it doesn't make it any less great. Sometimes it's just not the space for it. So my approach is just to keep testing, put your poems out in the world, and see how the world reacts to them.
So your work has made you actually see the world. You have mounted a couple, of prestigious international platforms. Do you have to prepare yourself any differently for a local versus an international audience?
Oh, that is interesting. Yes, because usually with the tours, it can be days of every day you're on stage, maybe for almost 2 weeks. You are talking about your work, you are engaging with the audience. So most of what I have to prepare is the understanding that I'll be around people a lot.
Okay.
You know,
not your thing.
I mean, it is, but not for 2 weeks straight.
Okay.
You know, I like to, after a performance, I feel so drained. So it's the understanding that I'll keep doing this night after night after night after night. Then how do I like come back to myself, and how do I, you know, and then do it again all over the next day. So it's also that mental preparation, but there's also like preparation that comes about my work. Sometimes I do around leading up to a tour, I'll do some rehearsals, get ready, get some poems that I want to take with me. And another preparation that I do, I usually think about my work, what it means, and what do I want to achieve in this tour, what do I want to bring with me. But more than anything, being in another country, you'll be sharing what you have with people, but you'll also be receiving so much. And just being in that space where you have your hands open and you're ready to receive whatever is out there, and experiencing it and immersing yourself. Because even if it's 2 weeks, it's just that. It's 2 weeks, and I just wanna be all in. I want to experience it. I don't want to leave with regrets and be like, why didn't I do this or do that? Or why didn't I try this or try that? So just being open to the whole experience, because it's hard to figure out what to expect in a place that you've never been in ever.
And which has been your best international platform to date?
That is so tough.
She's the babies.
I want to say Nigeria.
And why is that?
I really loved being in Nigeria.
Okay. There was a person there. No, when you said it was like there was a person too to be loved. But okay.
I loved being in Nigeria because I was in love. So, but not only that, I loved the writing. I've always loved Nigerian writers.
Okay.
Pen game.
Yeah.
The talent.
Yeah.
So I felt very spoiled. I felt like a kid in a candy store. Just seeing the kind of culture they have around language and storytelling. It was beautiful being in Nigeria. Yeah. Will I do it again? Probably.
Yeah. If it has been your best, you'll definitely do it.
Probably.
Your worst performance to date? On any platform, really?
On any who? Let me think. When was the last time I had a worst performance?
Ooh, look at that track record. Like, we have to dig deep. All we do is just awesome performances here. This is Busi, you know.
Okay, during Slam.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah.
During Slam, I remember we were slamming at CSP. I was still in my pursuit for engineering, trying to be an engineer. And what happened was that that week I was writing exams and I was showcasing. And it was like the final sort of for the season, the wrap up for the season, the final slam, right? So then I showcased day before. It goes amazing.
Yes.
Was it day before? No. I did the slam in the morning, and in the evening I was showcasing. But then I was so exhausted. My performance was just so messy. I got off stage, went to the back, and I was just crying. I was so overwhelmed by all of it. And I just cried it out. And in the evening, that's when I did my showcase. And it went very, very smooth, which was so comforting that someone was giving me a hug. Like, don't worry, not all your performances are going to be horrible.
Yeah. Your most memorable time on stage or even after a performance?
I would say when we did Surviving Loss. That was a moment. Like, we performed it twice for 2 nights. And each time it felt so new. And afterwards I was like, you know, when you're so grateful, you don't even feel like you need anything else. Like, my heart was that full. Yes. It was just full.
Oh man, shout out to the theatre spaces that accommodate us, honestly, because the feeling is unmatched, truly unmatched. When you look at your entire journey, and props really on everything that you have achieved, because you are Zakes Mda's favorite poet and a star. You know, what do you know now that you wish you knew about about your artistry really when you started?
Okay, I wish I knew that I have the space to investigate my talents, that I should not limit myself to just saying I'm a poet.
Yeah.
I think now more than anything, I want to be known as a writer. And when I was starting out, I was always scared to try out writing in other genres, like essays, and I was like, I found something that I can do and I'm just gonna do it. But now I work as a copywriter. I write short stories. I write book reviews, you know, like even if I'm not inspired to write a poem, I can sit down and still write whatever I feel to write, and not having those borders where I'm saying I'm just a poet, but then in like stretching my skills as a writer and be like, what else can I do? So I feel like I wish I was asking myself more questions that will uncover more things that I can do. Questions like, what else can I do? But also questions like, how else can we tell the story? There are poems that I feel like can work best as short stories, but then I wasn't allowing myself to write short stories because I felt like I'm bad at short stories. But now I'm allowing myself to do that. I'm sending out pieces of writing in other genres, and I'm also aware that I'm a beginner in these genres, but I'm allowing myself to learn and to implement and to send the work out there and see what can happen. So no more limits.
Take the limits off.
No more limits.
Any regrets on your journey?
Any regrets? I don't think I have any. And the reason I don't have any is because when I moved from engineering and enrolled to study creative writing, I knew that there was a risk in that shift, and then it's gonna be a bumpy road. And so in the beginning, like the business aspect of my poetry journey was like very shaky. Sometimes someone will call me, hey, I wanted to ask, are you available on this day for this festival? And I would immediately get so excited, such a way, just being in that space, such a way that I don't even care if I'm getting paid or not. So I think like my business muscle took way longer to actually kick in. But I do not regret that, because that was the journey. Most of the things I knew, or most of the things I know now, are things that I've learned from other writers, by asking questions, by seeing their posts online. And so I don't have regrets.
Nice. And just speaking of, the academics, congratulations on the graduation.
Thank
yes.
you.
Fresh graduate you are.
Thank you.
What is your ultimate goal in poetry?
For myself.
Whichever way you want to look at it, but in and through this medium.
In this medium, through poetry, I think I'll say my ultimate goal is to keep writing. Is that the work doesn't exist if you don't make it. So I just have to keep creating and keep remembering that is my position as a writer. And as well, my goal, or like as part of a collective of poets in South Africa, I think then it will be like to take poetry to spaces that we've never seen poetry, like just to stretch it and take it everywhere. Poems belong everywhere. I can't think of a place where I'll say a poem doesn't belong here, or you can't recite there. Like there isn't, like I can't imagine a space that can be like, no. I mean, the space can do that, but I can't imagine like a space where poem or poetry or poets cannot exist in. So just, I would love to see that kind of evolution. I'm already seeing it. Poetry is in adverts. Poetry is in like awards, in award ceremonies and graduation. It's just all over. So I like my goal is just to see that kind of evolution and to be part of it in a way that I can be.
Well, I look forward to seeing you being a part of this in every platform possible, because you are absolutely amazing. Thank you for the space that you occupy. Thank you for the voice that you did not mute. Thank you for the bravery. Thank you for the no limitations, because you are absolutely amazing. Thank you also for being here today. So
thank you to you, Miss Emmah. Your bravery for this space as well, because this is the kind of archiving and documenting that happens when we leave this space. Like, who are these poets? What do they do? What are they up to? And it's such a beautiful, like, the videos that have come out, there are videos that focus on business, on performance, so it's just like a wealth of knowledge. And I think the poets that will come after this moment, they won't be alone, because they can easily go to YouTube and learn and have these conversations instead of just seeing our performances or reading our poems, but actually know the behind the scenes of being a poet, and learn some skills. I've learned so much just from watching Puo. And so thank you so much for that.
Thank you. I should make you like the promo ambassador for Puo. Like, yes.
Yeah, poets might not be able to Google how much a poet earns in South Africa yet, but you know what? They must tune into Puo. They'll probably find out.
Oh, thank you. You said, I know you watch us. So after that, I
watched from the beginning.
Yes, you did. The
I was like, oh my God.
I was like, what will we see? It's like heavyweights are backing this thing up.
Happy to always guess who's the next artist, because I'm like, okay, who did this, who did that? And I'm like, okay, no, it's More Africa.
Yes.
Is it More Africa? Yeah. And it's just so exciting how it looks online, how professional the video work is. And you know what? This is quality work. You're onto something. Shout
out to the team, and shout out to you too for watching today's episode of Puo. Thank you ever so much, crew. You're amazing. Bye, everyone.